getting married. That's right, in August I will be walking down the aisle and getting hitched to the love of my life. That's why I decided that for the next month or so, I am going to be exclusively reading romance novels until I fall in love. And you, my friend, are coming along for the ride. I'm thrilled, I'm giddy, and I'm a little bit afraid, because it wasn't just an upcoming wedding that made me want to dive into the world of romance. The truth is, I have never read a commercial fiction romance book. Ever. According to the Story Graph, where I spend way too much of my time, I mainly read literary fiction that is, quote, reflective, dark, and emotional. So I've always suspected that I won't like the romance novels that I see recommended. I had to rack my brains to scrounge up a list of romance books that I have read and love. The Rosie Project, The Night Circus, and from back when I was a little tween, The Fault in Our Stars, which I distinctly recall made me sob during quiet reading time in English class, and the YA Ruby Oliver series, which I think is highly underrated and more people should talk about it. But considering the fact that I watch romantic movies more than any other genre, except maybe horror, I think my romantic literature experience is long overdue a boost. So that is why we are here. My name is Johanna, and I'm here to talk about books. Welcome to my very first vlog. I am extremely excited about the lineup that we have for this very special video. Will I fall in love with any of them? Time will tell. Let's get into it. The first book that I've chosen is The Love Hypothesis by Hazelwood. I just knew that if I was going to read popular romance books, I had to read the one that I've heard the most about. Also, having flipped through a tiny bit, the fun, conversational, diary-esque writing style reminds me of books that I haven't read since I was in like middle school or high school. I only skimmed the first page, but it kind of reminds me of The Princess Diaries, which is an amazing series, so take that with a pinch of salt in case that is too high praise for this book.
It's too big, I don't know what I was thinking.
But the idea of escaping into a romantic story that reminds me of the days when I was a nerdy, boy-obsessed brace face is very exciting to me. Next up, we have The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang. I mentioned that one of the only romance books I've ever read is The Rosie Project. I love that book, and that makes me think I'll really like this one too.
Well, think again.
Somehow the writing style of this one, based on the first page, also reminds me of books I read when I was young. The Click series comes to mind. That is also an amazing series, by the way. So I'm excited to see if I'll actually like this one. Next up, we have Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is a very sweet title, if you ask me. I also kind of have a feeling that I'll like this one. It is about a chronically ill computer geek who falls for a tattooed motorbike riding handyman. It's definitely giving Hazel Grace Lancaster and Augustus Waters from The Fault in Our Stars.
It's a metaphor, see?
Oh, and look who's quoted on the cover. The next book on the list is one whose title I can't say with a straight face. Red, White, and Royal Blue. I'm sorry, but the American president's son falls in love with a British prince? Sign me up immediately. Just look at them. It looks amazing. To be honest, I didn't expect this one to be quite so thick, and I'm a little scared. I hope I like it. Of course, I also needed to include an audiobook on my list, and based on a recommendation from a friend whose book taste I trust, I decided to read Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. Let's just hope the audiobook does the story justice. Now, the question is, which should I start with? If my goal is to read romance books until I fall in love, then I feel like I should start with the one I like the least, so that I have enough content for this video. And this quite sad and kind of mean award goes to The Love Hypothesis. Sorry, Hazelwood. I just don't know what to expect from a book that went viral on TikTok. So, without further ado, let's start reading. I'm wearing black today to mourn the time that I spent reading this piece of garbage. If I could sum it up in one word, I wouldn't be able to, because I need two words: cringe and rage. It started out as the cringiest book that I have ever read in my entire life. And you can see that in the notes I made throughout. Where are my notes? Ew. Ew. Sarcastic wow. Ew. Really? OMG cringe. Ew. I could go on. The descriptions, the dialogue, the flirting, they all made me feel that if I didn't crawl out of my skin and run far, far away, that I would combust. First of all, the premise is the dumbest goddamn non-premise that I've ever heard of. It opens with the protagonist, who is really, more accurately, the antagonist of my entire life, forcing a kiss on some random guy at their place of work in a laboratory without even looking at him and seeing who he is. And soon after, we find out that the idiotic reason that she decided to do that was because her best friend, and she explained this to him in excruciating detail, and I'm like, lady, he's not interested. Her best friend has a crush on her ex, and the main character wants to convince her friend that she's over her ex so that her best friend will date him. Like, really? You don't need to kiss some random guy on the off chance that your friend will see you? Like, that is totally unnecessary. Which brings me to the protagonist, quote unquote. Her real name should be Voldemort, or Darth Vader, or the devil from The Devil Wears Prada. Except I would never compare her to Meryl Streep. I've read books with serial killers and sociopaths as the main characters, and they were more likable than Olive freaking Smith.
If I could make someone dead with my mind, it would be you.
The not like the other girls shtick made me have to physically refrain from throwing up. Of course, she's just this side of too slender, but still feels the need to constantly tell us on every single page how she needs to order the most sugary and unhealthy item on the menu. Like, really? Throughout the entire book, she is so effing annoying. Like, there's this one bit where they're going to a conference because, of course, she's invited to give a talk about her very fascinating research that we don't really get to hear anything about, because we don't get to hear anything about her personality except that she's annoying and dumb. And when she finds out that her friends are rooming with other people, she was like, what? Why are you not? I can't afford to room on my own. And they have a perfectly valid reason. But she's like, never mind. I'll find somewhere. I'll stay somewhere an hour away because I can't afford to stay at the conference. I hate her. And her self-deprecating comments, I think, are supposed to be, like, charming and relatable, but they have the opposite effect. I'm like, please, grow a spine. And note to the author, the fact that her name is Olive annoys me as well, because it's, like, so wannabe quirky. And on top of that, you know what her friend's nickname for her is? All. All? Hey, All. It's so stupid and ugly. Moving on. Then we have the plot, if you could call it that. This part I'll flag as spoilers, even though, if you're watching this, I implore you to never waste your time reading this drivel. Spare yourself, and just listen to what else I have to say. So this random guy that she makes out with turns out to be some professor guy at Stanford, where she is a grad student, and they inexplicably end up in this entirely pointless fake dating situation. There are so many fake dating stories out there, and let me tell you, this is the worst one. And one of the reasons for that is there is absolutely no need for this relationship to be fake. Just date for real. And this is where my rage started to set in. There's absolutely no reason for them to carry on in a fake relationship. They are both very clearly into each other. So this idiot woman just invents conflicts that don't exist. Oh, he would never be into silly old, not like the other girls like me. Oh, he's probably in love with someone else. Case in point, she's crying about this woman that she made up that she thinks he's in love with. Probably stunning, probably feminine, with curves. Someone who actually needed to wear a bra. Someone who was not half covered in freckles. Who had mastered the art of applying liquid eyeliner without making a mess of herself. Meanwhile, he is constantly holding her gaze, and his mouth is always twitching when he looks at her, and he's always going, Olive. Also, another thing I need to mention that boiled my blood was, for some reason, Olive seems to think that all these scientists at Stanford care about her stupid relationship. But what's even worse is they do care. Like, as if. Here, she's talking to someone. Adam, the professor, has been away for like a few days, and this other professor is talking to her, and he's like, how you holding up? Fine. How bad is it? Adam being gone. Hell, even I miss that little shit. How you holding up? He has been gone like 2 days. And why would this guy care? Why would he give a crap? He is a professor. She's some random student. Like, literally, why are they talking like they're in middle school? And the sex scene. The sex scene. The 30-page smut that came out of nowhere. 1 second they're talking like middle schoolers, and the next they're banging 6 times in a row. And the whole time, he's literally drooling all over her. She keeps making annoying comments, being like, oh, he would never be into me. Oh, this is gonna be our only night together. Better make it count. Why? Like, why? Why is it your only night together? There's nothing keeping you apart. All the evidence points to the fact that he's in love with her, she's in love with him. Perfect. No fake dating, no conflict, no book. Hallelujah. The only redeeming factor of this book is that it's a very quick read, so thankfully my suffering was relatively short-lived. And I will also say, there is this one very comically caricature-y villain, and his role is basically to comment on challenges that many women in science face. And I don't want to hate on something that is trying to make a feminist point. So, respect to the author for, I guess, trying to shed light on this issue very briefly. But
be better.
Moving on. The great news is I have also started listening to romantic comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld, and I really like it so far. And thank goodness for that, because if it was also garbage, then I would be very worried about reading the rest of these books. But a third of the way through, I think romantic comedy is everything frickin' Love Hypothesis wishes it was. It's charming, it's cute, it's funny, it's romantic, it's feminist, and it's 1,000 times better. So I'm super excited to keep listening to that one. What should I tackle next? After the TikTok sensation, I want to read one that I expect to like. And I do think there's hope for all of these. But of these three, I think the Kiss Quotient is also about a fake relationship. So I'm going to put a pin in that one for now. Need to have a bit of space from that trope for the time being. And of these two, for some reason I feel like I'm going to Get a Life Chloe Brown a bit more. So I think I will tackle that one next. And I kind of have high hopes. I really don't want to be let down. But there's something about this bucket list she has that I think sounds really cute, and I don't know. I don't want to get my hopes up after the disappointment, but to be fair, I did not expect to like The Love Hypothesis, so at least there's that. Thank you for listening to me rant about this book that is going straight into the donate pile. I got this and the rest of these secondhand from my favorite shop, The World of Books. I got all 4 of them for £11. And I guess the people who had this before me also hated it, and that's why it ended up there, which is probably where it will end up again. And whoever reads it next will see my annotations, and I hope they enjoy them. On to bigger and better things, hopefully. Let's get reading. Well, thankfully, this was not as bad as the love hypothesis. If it was, I would be deceased. Cause of death, lost the will to live while reading terrible romance books.
That's catchy.
But here I am, alive and well, because I liked Get a Life, Chloe Brown. This is the steamy love story of Chloe, a beautiful, prideful, unyielding woman who lives with chronic pain, and Red, the gorgeous superintendent of her building who paints and rides a motorcycle and is obsessed with her. After a near accident that makes Chloe's life flash before her eyes, she makes a bucket list. Some of the items on the list include enjoy a drunken night out, ride a motorbike, go camping, etc. And she strikes a deal with Red to complete it. He'll help her tick items off the list, and in exchange, she'll help him build a website for his art portfolio. In the beginning, they act like they don't like each other. He feels like she's a snob. She feels he's not worth her time. But we get both their perspectives throughout the book, and their inner thoughts tell us very early that they are hot for each other. That's one thing that surprised me about this book, because when I read the back, I thought it was going to be the classic story of 2 people working together on a deal and slowly falling in love over windswept motorcycle rides and drunken nights. And I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't quite so predictable. It was really funny too. I really liked the dialogue, the funny characters and the ways they were described. Like when Chloe is stuck in a tree rescuing a cat and Red has to come rescue her. When they were both really into each other a quarter way through, I had no idea what to expect from the rest of the book. Turns out a lot of steamy scenes. Like, a lot.
A lot. A lot.
I'm telling you, they are extremely into each other. And there is very little keeping them apart. But I kind of liked that. I liked floating around this feel-good, limited plot world where there was just lots of love and not very many problems. It did border a little bit on cringe at times because they just wouldn't shut up about how into each other they were. And for some of the issues that did come up, I was like, calm down. But overall, I really enjoyed reading it, like a solid 3.5 stars. I think this would be a great book for anyone who wants a romance with very little conflict, quick resolutions to any problems that do arise, and many sexy, spicy, steamy scenes. Me personally, I'm starting to feel like, drawing conclusions from this experiment, this trial, that that's not really me. Like, I don't think romance equals lots of sex scenes in a row. Do you know what I mean? Like, there needs to be tension, there needs to be excitement, there needs to be characters that I'm so in love with. I wasn't like in love with these characters, I thought they were funny, and it was a cute book, but I wasn't like on the edge of my seat waiting to see what would happen. I'm starting to build an opinion of what I want to see in a romance book. And in fact, I feel a bit bad for these other books that are left on my list because I highly doubt that any of them are going to be able to top romantic comedy. And I'm not even finished with it yet. I love it so far. I can't even talk about it yet. I need to process my feelings. Anyway, what to read next? I have a feeling from skimming pages here and there that I'm going to enjoy Red, White, and Royal Blue more of the remaining options, and Honestly, I did not think I would say that. So I'm going to save that one, which means it's time to give the Kiss Quotient a try. Let's go read.
A few minutes later.
I'm not going to read this. Listen, did I just break the record for fastest DNF of my life? Yes. I just don't want to put myself through another TikTok made me buy it book. I did not know this was a TikTok sensation when I planned my romantic books, but a few pages in, I'm having flashbacks to the nightmare that was The Love Hypothesis. And you know what? There are millions of books in the world. Billions! And I see absolutely no reason to waste any more time on what I sense is quickly gearing up to be more boring dialogue, two-dimensional characters, uninventive writing, extremely cringy sex scenes, and an all-round unsatisfying experience. So, sorry, Helen, that just leaves one more. Please don't let me down. My curiosity about this book has been growing, and I am very excited to dive into it. No time to waste. Let's try this again. This book took me completely by surprise. Wholesome, heartwarming, well written, tear-jerking, and sweet. I actually loved it. This novel follows the love story of Alex Claremont Diaz, first son of the United States, and Prince Henry of Wales after a run-in at a royal wedding leads to a PR disaster. It is a classic enemies to lovers story, and the attention and acclaim it's received for its unique premise and engaging storyline is very well deserved, in my opinion. Let's talk about why this book is an absolute gem. First off, it is scrumptiously, deliciously diverse. Truly like a breath of fresh air without feeling forced at all. Why do we not live in a world where the US president is a remarried woman with mixed race children and the first son has a romance with the Prince of England? The White House setting is also amazing. I feel like I weirdly read a lot of books when I was growing up about like super famous and wealthy people. So this felt like a very cozy kind of throwback. Like these people are so rich and they don't even have to work. That's the dream. They just like order ice cream to their room and go to fancy expensive parties and jet set to other countries at the drop of a hat.
I'll allow it.
And the juxtaposition of this formal White House setting with the passionate romance brewing within its walls creates this irresistible allure. Let me tell you, the romance? Not too shabby. It was very tasteful, with just the right level of detail in my view, which made it a pleasant respite from some of these other books. And obviously I don't know the first thing about running in royal or political circles, but it felt very well researched. Like it seemed like Casey McQuiston knew their stuff. It was also very funny and witty, even with the significant challenges that arise from challenging the status quo as some of the most famous and watched people in the world. It offered a perfectly entertaining and immersive escape into a world of celebrity, romance, and glamour. And it did bring a tear to my eye several times as I felt like my heart was going to explode into a million pieces. It had its flaws, like any book would, but I'm not going to dwell on those because the truth is, I was very pleasantly surprised by how much I liked this book. I just found the characters very cute and likable, and just the fact that it's so different from anything I've read in so long. And I didn't expect it to be as well written as it was. So I highly recommend this book to anybody who wants to read a cute LGBTQIA plus love story. Also, you know what's great about this book is that it made me want to read even more romance. You'd think that maybe after this experience I would want to take a break, but they mentioned, for example, Jane Austen, and I was like, just made me realize that there's a whole wealth of like classic romance books that I haven't even considered because I was focused on like modern commercial romance. But what about all the like great love stories of history? If you know any, let me know. One that comes to mind is like Wuthering Heights. I've already read that one. Not interested. Next. No, I want to hear all your recommendations. Now, I'm reading romance books until I fall in love. And I have fallen in love. But if you're keeping count, I have just one book left to finish, and none of these other books are going to top it. Let me tell you that right now. Because romantic comedy is one of the greatest romances I have ever read. And I know I haven't read that many, but I've read quite a few for this video. And romantic comedy, I haven't even finished it, and I already know it takes the cake. And you know how I know? Because I don't want it to end. But I'll report back soon. In the meantime, this is not going in my donate pile. I will put this proudly on my shelf and tell anyone who judges the title the way I did originally that you shouldn't judge a book by its title or its cover. So, saving the best for last, final romance book, here I come. All I can say is this experiment was a success. I set out a romantic literature virgin, if you will, with the aim to read romance books until I fell in love. And here I am, smitten as a kitten. This is a wonderfully unique story about funny, clever, talented Sally Field, who works as a writer on a late night show much like SNL called The Night Owls. And one week, the show's guest host is the humble, gorgeous, down-to-earth, heartthrob musician Noah Brewster, and the rest is history. I loved this book from the very first minute. And yes, it was an audiobook, so that is very impressive. I don't know what made the audiobook so amazing, except, I guess, the narrator Kristen C's voice. So yes, I will be listening to every single book she's ever narrated. And of course, I had to sprint to buy the physical copy, A, so I could have it on my shelf, and B, so that I could have it at my fingertips to reread at a moment's notice. Why did I love this book so much? I don't know. I loved the unique premise, the attention to detail, the humor and wit and charm, the behind-the-scenes look at show business and fame that felt so real, the partial pandemic setting that actually made me remember and reflect on that time, the feminist perspective, the enthralling dialogue, the anxieties, the comforts, and absolutely the romance. Every minute was perfect. The characters also felt so real, and I fell in love with them. Especially Noah, who I have a huge crush on. What a sweetheart. There's too much to go into about everything I like about him, so I'll just pick one. I really like the detail that he didn't drink, and the insight that that gives into his past and his character. The conversations that the characters had about it just felt so genuine, and I don't know, they made me feel so good. And that's kind of how I felt with all the conversations in this book. Like, I just felt like even if they were talking about mundane things, I just wanted to keep listening to them. This book actually made me feel something I haven't felt in a really long time. Every once in a while, I come across something that I love so much that it's like painful. A movie so perfect it hurts to watch it. A song so beautiful that it makes me sad. Or a book that I'm afraid to keep reading because of how it will make me feel. Part of it is an aversion to feeling my emotions so strongly because, believe me, I have a lot of them. Part of it is regret that I wasn't the one to create something so wonderful and the feeling that I never will. And part of it is just a sensation of feeling so happy and in love that it feels like my heart is splitting open. Anyway. I feel like I want to say more about it, but I don't want to give anything away because I think everyone should read it. I feel like I've also already hyped it up enough, and I know some people are going to be like... This is how I always feel, though, after finishing a book that I love so much. Instantly, I'm like, I need to read it again to see if it lives up to it, or if I've just, like, hyped it up in my mind. But you know what's funny is I have this beautiful physical version now, which I'm so happy to have. But I think I loved the audiobook so much that it feels a bit weird seeing it written down. Like, I want Kristen C to keep reading it to me. I don't know what it is, okay? Am I in love with romantic comedy or am I in love with her voice? I don't know. But no, the reality is I'm in love with Noah Brewster. Anyway, I don't know, I'm just yapping at this point. I loved this book and I can't wait to read it again. If you have reached the end of this video, thank you. With one book that I DNF'd, one that I absolutely hated with a fiery passion, one that I liked well enough, one that I really enjoyed, and one that I loved, I think this has been a very illuminating and well-rounded journey. Thank you for coming along for the ride. I want to conclude with 3 lessons and takeaways from my romance reading vlog experience. Just kidding, I'm not going to write them on this Etch a Sketch. Lesson number 1. Take any book talk recommendation with a generous pinch of salt. The Love Hypothesis went viral on TikTok, but apparently so did Red, White, and Blue. So I just don't think it's a trustworthy source of consistent book recommendations, okay? And I don't plan to ever let TikTok guide my future reading again. Lesson number 2. Note to authors. In my opinion, books don't become sexier or more romantic the more drawn out, explicit, and over-the-top sex scenes that you stick into them. Personally, I think leaving some things up to the imagination is much sexier and way less cringy. Lesson number 3. There are good romance books out there, and you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, necessarily. I do think they are there to be judged, but I never would have expected to like something like Red, White, and Royal Blue. Yet here we are, and in my experience, there's a lot of crap to wade through to get to the gems, so be careful what you pick. With that, I'm going to pick my next book to read. Most likely, I'm going to return to what Storygraph tells me I like best. Something reflective, emotional, and dark. If you enjoyed this vlog, do check out my other videos and let me know in the comments what else you want to see on my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!